Welcome to the show. Today we have Molly Sly. Molly is the head of global talent acquisition enablement at Sage and an incredible bright spot in the world of recruiting.
We are supposed to be enabling and supporting our recruiters, creating efficiencies, getting rid of friction so that the recruiters can focus on the more important parts of their jobs versus all the administrative stuff at the bottom.
What I think matters most to me in this time where we're blending AI with the humanity of hiring is balancing the art and science. You are at the core of that. What are you doing on a day-to-day basis?
Because if a recruiter is slammed, which they all are, if you give them a tool and they try it, let's say 2 times, and it doesn't do what it's supposed to do, they're done with it. They don't have time for that.
All right, what's up, everybody? Welcome to the show. Today we have Molly Sly. Molly is the head of global talent acquisition enablement at Sage and an incredible bright spot in the world of recruiting. I've known Molly for the last couple of years. We've spent some time together at events, and it's wonderful to have you on the show today. Molly, what's up?
Thank you, sir, for having me. And it's a balmy 50-ish degrees here in Detroit. And I'm looking forward to talking to you.
I've always appreciated your perspective. You're highly respected in this space. What I think matters most to me in this time where we're blending AI with the humanity of hiring is balancing the art and science. You are at the core of that, working in your role. I think a great place to start is what is recruiter enablement and what are you doing on a day-to-day basis?
Yeah. So I think recruiter enablement for me, but I feel like it's a little bit different everywhere. First of all, it's pretty new. There's not that many companies that have an enablement team like we do, but it's exactly what it sounds like. We are supposed to be enabling and supporting our recruiters, creating efficiencies, getting rid of friction, constantly upscaling, training, which also then includes training our hiring managers and just making the machine run it as well as it can be so that the recruiters can focus on the more important parts of their jobs versus all the administrative stuff at the bottom. And then obviously there's a data piece to it. There's the tooling and tech piece to it. So I feel like a lot of companies think that they think of rec ops and they think enablement are the same. I don't think they're the same. I think rec ops is a little bit more involved in building and owning the machine and all the tech pieces, whereas enablement, we're really trying to just get it rolling and moving and training. And there's content pieces. There's a whole bunch of that. What I think it's most closely related to is more TA operations. So I think those are synonymous with enablement. And then for us, we are just all 3 blanketed into one. We're just one little team of 3, and we take everything at Sage that is not filling a position. So we are doing the tech stack, and we're doing the training, and we're doing the content and rolling out new products and processes and just all of it. So we're just a catch-all right now.
I love that. And I appreciate the nuance because recruiting has evolved. There are more recruiting as a product conversations.
Yeah.
There are a lot of is recruiting sales conversations. I view the granularity of what you just described as the evolution of the field. We are maturing, and I think it's a way we deliver more strategic value to the businesses we serve. When I think about the phrase enablement and recruiter enablement, it actually derives from sales enablement. And when you think about the workflow of a sales rep and a recruiter, they're very similar. People want to debate whether recruiting is sales or not. I think fundamentally it's very similar from a workflow perspective. So when we think about breaking down TA ops and enablement, it's truly supporting recruiters to do their best work. How do you think recruiters do their best work in 2026?
My gosh, I feel for them. I really think this might be the hardest time to be a recruiter. Just the craziness of where just the world has been in the last, 5-6 years since COVID. It's just been wild. Everybody went remote, and then there were all the resignations, and then recruiters were being recruited more highly than engineers, and then all the layoffs, and now return to office initiatives, and people being afraid to change jobs because fear of layoffs. And so it's a really hard time. And then you introduce AI into the mix. And there's something to be said for a growth mindset, and I'm all for it. I was just at a conference. I want to let everything I just learned sink in, and I want to have follow-up conversations. But where do you have the time to do that? There's so much information out there. There's so many podcasts like yours. So we can learn from each other and get new ideas and find new ways to do things. But at the same time, our teams are always shrinking, our budgets are shrinking, and we're asking a lot of recruiters right now. And then they also have to walk this sort of tightrope of just a very uncertain market. Candidates really have to feel comfortable and confident. The sourcing aspect of it, I don't know, man. I just really think it's a hard time to be a recruiter.
Yeah, I
You never
agree.
fear of, are their jobs going to go away? That every 5 minutes you see a LinkedIn post about how AI is going to take jobs. So I just think it's just a crazy time.
It is a crazy time, but it's also fun.
For sure. Yeah.
Recruiting is naturally a pressure-filled role. At the end of the day, from a first principles thinking perspective, recruiting is about getting to a handshake, yes. And I love the level of personal accountability that comes with recruiting to be able to say, I went out, found this person, and we brought them into the process and converted them. There is something to be said for somebody who can go out, consult with the hiring manager, understand the talent profile, source that person, get them engaged, get them through the process, get them to close and sign the offer and join and be fulfilled to deliver great outcomes. And we talk a lot about outcomes-based hiring and outcomes-based job descriptions, but I don't know if it's just my upbringing and where I come from and the things that have shaped me to be a person, but I just love at the end of the day being able to be like, yeah, this is actually really simple. It's not easy, but if you can go out and do those things, you'll deliver value regardless of where AI is applied in the process.
No,
what are your
for
thoughts
sure.
on accountability when you think about enablement?
Yeah, I think we all know it's very metrics driven, right? How many, and then there's all those metrics that we don't love, like quality of hire and cost per hire and time to fill, which aren't always the most important things, especially if it's a matter of people applying versus you having to go out and source and finesse and do all of that. But I feel like there's a big onus on recruiters now more than ever to be more strategic, to be, not only are they partnering with their hiring managers, but they're also having to really advise them. And so many of our hiring managers have had no training. So they just want to do things the way they've been doing it for the last 20 years, which we all know is not going to fly. So I feel like from my perspective, there's really something to be said for recruiters having to be really flexible and wanting to almost constantly change up how they do things versus this is just how I do things. This is how I've always done it. I do this, I do that, I do this, because I just feel like the landscape is changing constantly. And so they have to rewrite job postings before they post them. They're like, there's just a lot of stuff they have to do that I didn't have to do. I should have been doing 20 years ago, but we weren't. We would just take whatever they gave us and post it out. And now we are pushing them to don't ever post what a hiring manager gives you. You rewrite it. You've got your AI stuff to help you out, but we've got to really entice candidates to want to talk to you. And these old long job descriptions of 40 bullets it's not going to cut it. So for me, I really feel like they just have to be constantly learning, which again, where's the time in the day to do that? But embrace the tools that they have access to versus just doing it this is just how I do it.
Yeah, I've seen a couple posts where it's like it's a full-time job to even just learn the skills that companies want to have to get your next role. And a lot of times recruiters are handcuffed by the systems and tools that a company decides. So I think one of the challenges right now for recruiters is like, how do you gain experience in a tool that you have no agency over whether or not it's being used in your current role? And I've seen an uptick in job descriptions for recruiters requiring specific systems experience. To me, that's a testament of the market and the labor pool. Like right now, if you're using a specific ATS, you can go to the market and find somebody that has that specific ATS experience versus what you mentioned a few years ago, where there are more recruiter openings and software engineer roles.
Yeah.
And companies couldn't be as picky. You mentioned the recruiter layoffs, and I have tons of empathy for recruiters out there who navigated that with grace. The challenge is, like, at the end of the day, like, recruiting is a thankless job. It's very humble work. And I navigated layoffs myself too. So it's like, I'm not immune from this. Recruiters are the first to go.
Yeah.
There is a silver lining, however, that the recruiters who embrace adversity with adaptability, flexibility, optimism have been able to stack more at-bats at different organizations with different types of employee value propositions, company sizes, hiring manager approaches, compensation and EVPs. So it's like really exciting to me to see recruiters who have almost accelerated their skills and experience in the last few years for those who have navigated and been able to get laid off, land a new job, get laid off again, land a new job. Like, we're riding the wave, baby. That's just how it is in recruiting. And that, to me, is the accountability piece. If you can't handle the volatility, like, maybe go do something else. Because at the end of the day, yeah, we saw this high watermark on comp and recruiters being courted. I love that moment. The first
So
time
did
my
I.
friends
I was
started
loving
breaking
it.
through six-figure salaries, like,
Yeah.
hell yeah. But the reality is things are never as good or as bad as they seem. And recruiting is always going to be those ups and downs. So it's all
Yeah.
about developing skills and experience to position yourself in the market. And when I think about the work you're doing, that enablement piece is almost accelerating the value that recruiters can deliver so they can focus on candidate and hiring manager relationships.
Yeah, no, I would agree with that. And I think what you were talking about with like recruiters having tools that they're expected to use, whether they had any sort of say in them or not, that resonates with me because we haven't been able to bring in a lot of new tools because we are, like I said, in the process of looking for a much bigger system. So we're holding on everything. But we did bring in LinkedIn Hiring Assistant recently, which is LinkedIn's sort of AI sourcing module or tool. And the one thing that we did on the enablement team was we recognized that the recruiters were over capacity. And like I said, some recruiters are just used to doing things the same way all the time. And so you can't just introduce a new tool and expect them to have the time to figure out how to use it. And especially something like Hiring Assistant, it's not just plug and play. Like it really has required a lot of coaching. And so we're lucky enough to have an enablement team that we can own that tool. We made sure to go in and use it ourselves first and figure out what that worked well and what didn't work well. And then, so we didn't really roll it out to the recruiters and start doing training and workshops and having champions and all of that until we had been playing with it for about a month ourselves. Because if a recruiter is slammed, which they all are, if you give them a tool and they try it, let's say 2 times, and it doesn't do what it's supposed to do, they're done with it. They don't have time for that. We're in this position to be able to really roll out the training. I feel like so many people have these huge tech stacks and they're like, we're not having the adoption. They've got all these tools. Why don't they use them? But if you don't have an ops team or an enablement team, there's probably not someone that actually owns that tool. So they're just rolling it out and then not doing anything more with it. Whereas we're able to constantly we have monthly calls and we'll do little updates or little try this. This is a new best practice. Try this prompt. So I feel like there's a big part of what recruiters can do with the tools they have, like just making sure that you can make the tools you have the most impactful they can be. And a lot of times recruiting teams just don't have time to figure out all the nuances. And so that's something that I feel fortunate for our team that we do have enablement. I wish every company had an enablement team to help drive that. Because if I told you how many hours that one other person on my team and I spent figuring out Leha, talking to LinkedIn, saying, why doesn't this do that? And taking more training on ourselves, and just, it's a lot of time, but it's helping us get the adoption that we want.
And that's the key right there is we see so much excitement around new tools emerging in the market. The ATS landscape is poised to grow about 1.5x in the next 5 years, which is awesome because if the ATS market grows, all of the trickle down components, the feature-based companies will be building as well. And we're seeing a lot of M&A activity for roll-ups of these companies getting acquired. And I'm excited about that. But one thing I keep observing, and especially in the content doom scroll, is there's so much chasing of the shiny object in recruiting. This goes back to what I mentioned about first principles thinking. Like all you really need is a phone, data enrichment, and a really solid intake call. If you can't recruit with that, if you can't source a person that doesn't have a digital profile, I don't know if this is the profession for folks because it's not about just adding cool lifestyle SaaS into your stack and saying, I'm using this tool. It's about delivering outcomes.
Yeah.
And when I think about that tool bloat that happens, recruiters are quick to abandon tools that don't deliver the outcomes that they think they're going to deliver. We actually have a problem in the space of vendors overpromising and under-delivering.
Oh my
There's
gosh.
so much marketing. And
Or
I
the
work with
demo, they're
vendors.
like amazing. And you're like, give it to me. And then you get it and you're like, what is this pile of, and there's just so much. It's so overwhelming. Every day I feel like a new tool is coming out. And then there's so many tools that kind of do the same things. And it's like, that's actually a full-time job in itself too. Who has the time to go be doing all these demos and figuring out what you might want to bring in for your team? That's a full-time job too.
And that's where enablement is key because you want to drive engagement, retention, get the most out of the tools. A lot of tools have actually come to market and they're pretty cheap. Like a lot of HR tech is like a tenth of the cost of sales B2B SaaS. And they're very similar products doing very similar work. And I'm glad you mentioned Leha. All the cool kids are calling it Leha.
They are. I'm in the lazy group. And so I'm just like, ooh, hiring assistant is exhausting to say, but Leha, yes, that's where I'm at.
And when I was at Talent Connect in, what was that, September, October of last year, and it was like the year from when they announced it, I was really psyched because I'm a sourcer. I love sourcing. Such a great platform to help train recruiters to become sourcers. So like, I don't expect every recruiter I meet to be some crazy obsessed internet sleuth like me and my handful of sourcer friends. Some recruiters need solid platform, great UI, and there is value in paying for that tool. Because the reality is their counterpart in sales has a much higher cost per license if they are a sales rep than that recruiter. So if you're paying 10, 12, 15K for a license in LinkedIn Recruiter and you're getting access to new emerging tools with incredible data and research, that's a drop in the bucket for some companies' budgets. But we see so much negativity around LinkedIn Recruiter, and I just don't buy it.
Yeah. LinkedIn Recruiter does get a lot of shame for sure. I just mean people really seem to be dogging on it, but I have used it for as long as I've been able to. And like to your point, because the thing is, yes, there's sourcers that I feel like are practically computer engineers. They're doing stuff that I'm like, how did you do that? What are you doing? But like I've always been, not always, I was a sourcer for a while too, but a full desk recruiter. And that's what our recruiters are. Not only are they full desk recruiters, but they're working across the globe, which is tough because you live in the UK and you're hiring people in Spain and France and the US, and everybody's got different rules and regulations and currencies. And it's just a lot to have to juggle. Not to mention you factor in, especially in the UK, Sage is like one of the top 10 tech companies over there. So our recruiters are getting flooded with applications and you can't ignore them. So these recruiters don't just get to spend all day sourcing. They've got to look at these applications as well. And so it's like, and then they've got to be tending the 35 million meetings that everyone has a week. And they've got to be training and working with their hiring manager that wants to keep changing their requirements every 5 minutes. And they're really spread very thin. And I'm like you, I always have loved like gamifying things. So like for me, it was always like, I would say a triage recruiter. I was like thrown into this team is really unhappy. Molly, go fix it. And so then I would recruit for them. And I loved getting them to trust that I'm going to give them the right candidates. And I always sourced because I was a tech recruiter. So I never waited for the applicants. It's like the job opened, I started sourcing immediately. But I also didn't have this super high rec load that recruiters today have. So I was able to put more time into it. And that's the one cool thing. I see so much promise in LinkedIn Hiring Assistant because what it can do and what we're trying to get our recruiters to do is even if you don't usually need to source for a role because we get tons of applications and it's all good, like you set up a Leha project on it and you could just say, show me the top 3 people that might fit this. And then you like one of them, great, then run with it. And you've got some source candidates in play when normally you wouldn't. So I like that it will have us sourcing for roles that we might not normally source for. And also I like that it gives our global full desk recruiters time to source when they might not normally have the time to do the kind of sourcing we want to do. So yeah, I completely agree with you on the tech. And I feel like somebody's got to own it to really make sure that you can drive adoption. And like we just brought that in. I would not be introducing like 3 more new tools right now. That's the other thing. I feel like you got to slow down and give them time to sink their teeth into something before you start introducing another new tool, in my opinion.
Yeah. And when I think about like how a team can learn new tools, map the market, pilot some of this stuff, like you can always ask a vendor to pilot something, especially if you're sourcing and you're going to market to spend couple G's on AI sourcing tools. Buy both. They're $200 a month, A/B test them, and then have one of your recruiters do a teach back session every other week or something. And it's like, hey, cool. I tested this tool. So-and-so tested this tool. This is what we saw. And having those teach back sessions so that recruiters can feel like they're keeping up with their counterparts. Because if you log on to LinkedIn on any given day, like I vibe coded everything one day, I use this new emerging tool the next. There's funding announcements. It's hard for recruiters to feel like they're staying up with their peers while also delivering the outcomes of the job itself when they have those high rec loads. A lot of these folks that are talking about tools or vibe coding stuff, like they're not working in-house with 15 corporate recs. That's a lot of work to go out and ship 200 emails per pipeline for 15 recs. I've done that work. I've sourced in the middle of the night. I remember when I had a newborn, I was working for like a Series B startup and we were pushing towards an IPO. And my rec load was insane, but like the payoff was huge. It didn't hit. The company like didn't get the IPO. I didn't make that life-changing money, But that experience, the exercise, the craft of doing that work kind of
Yeah.
primed my system for operating at that level. And at the end of the day, it's like also just really fun. I love the fundamentals of building a pipeline and cold calling
The
people.
hunt. Yeah. Yeah.
And I think that's the beauty of recruiting is focusing on the outcomes. When I think about the work you're doing, outcomes for TA enablement, you mentioned metrics. What are the metrics for you and your team? What does the executive leadership want to know about the work you're doing?
Yeah. What's funny, I feel like we've been so focused on building out metrics and Power BI dashboards for the team because we didn't really have it before that we got to own until we had this enablement team and we got to bring in one of our recruiters. Her name is Sylvia. She was a recruiter and now she's on my team and she's our data guru and she put herself through a boot camp and she can do all these amazing things. And so before having Sylvia on our team, we didn't have access to so much data that we need. We really struggled with even just the company. I think every company struggles with forecasting, but capacity planning and being able to know what's coming and make sure that we have the team that can support it in the right locations and all of that. So we've focused so much, she's only been on our team for a year, on what we need for the team that we haven't been singing for our supper quite as much for the enablement team in terms of like, how do we show our worth? We have started looking at, we built this huge SharePoint site because especially with being global, the recruiters need to access like a million different things. And it was all over the place. You didn't know where things were. So we've got this very clean, not super pretty, but it's just a link repository for LinkedIn resources are here. Global resources are here. Templates for writing job postings are here. Like our pay stuff. It's just very easy to navigate. So we've factored in how much time they save, like by looking at the monthly visits we get to that site, how long they tend to stay on that site, how much time it would have taken them to find all that or rewrite something themselves that we've got on there for them. So we've looked at that. We've looked at like I want to say a year or two ago, we had, I think, 4 hires per year per recruiter on average. This last year, we had 70. So we've certainly created efficiencies. And so we're able to look at that like, wow, we're able to do so much more per recruiter than we've been able to do in the past because we have been trying to clear the path for them and provide them with more tools or better processes, streamlining things for them. 70 hires per year per recruiter is not sustainable. So that is not the number that we go based off of, but it's what we delivered. So we've created efficiencies there. So we're trying to look at it from that perspective. Where are we saving time? How are we saving like even just like not saving, but creating a better process for candidates and hiring managers. So we've done a lot around hiring manager training and just a better experience for everyone. And so again, we've only had Sylvia for a year now, so we'll be able to start looking at now longevity of candidates that we've hired. Can we say that I hate quality of hire sitting with TA, but can we say that has improved because maybe the hiring managers have been better at interviewing and we've been pushing them to do structured interviews and making it a much more fair and consistent process. And like, there's a lot that we're going to be looking at, but we really have spent this last year focusing on what do we need for the recruiting team and those deliverables.
Yeah, and I love that you mentioned quality of hire and not having it sit with the recruiting team. What is quality of hire? Like, what does it
Right.
even mean?
And here's why I don't like it. I get it. We did hire them. However, you look at it, like the recruiter probably spent a half hour with that person, right? Like they did that first call, not a half hour, because then of course they're bringing them through the process, they're making the offers, et cetera. But we also didn't make the hiring decision. So why does that sit with us, especially when it could have been the top quality hire you will ever get in your life? But if they're working for a crappy manager or they had a terrible onboarding experience because the team that hired them just was too busy to help them, why would that sit with us? So much, people say it all the time. People don't quit companies, they quit managers, or there's so many variables. And I just think it's a silly metric to sit within TA. It just is what it is. I think you talk to 10 different people, you're going to get people in one camp or the other, but we don't have control over it. Sure, we introduce a slate of candidates and we might say which ones we think are best, but that decision's not ours. And then their onboarding and their experience and their learning, we have nothing to do with that.
Yeah, it's so true. I love the concept of quantifying the outcome
Yeah.
of an
Which of course we
employee.
need to. Yeah.
However, every formula fails to index, measure, and equate the most important factor in an employee's outcome, and that's motivation. So we've gotten really good at reverse engineering things like talent density, talent mapping, talent personas, interview methodology, but it's all measuring like the secondary signal. The primary signal is motivation. There's just no way to capture or quantify human motivation.
Yeah.
So we can take all of the insights and analytics and put them into some sort of quantitative measure, which appeals to the sensibilities of leadership in tech companies because they come
Mhm.
from a science and technology background. But there's really no way to measure human motivation that I've seen. Have you ever seen anything like that where we can reverse engineer human motivation for a recruiter to spend 30 minutes with somebody to know if they're going
No.
to be motivated in
I
year
mean, of
two?
course, there's questions you can ask, but people can tell you what they think you want to hear. Do you know what I mean? And even if you can do it, which of course we can try to poke around at it with asking certain questions, but is it ever going to be reportable? Where's the hardwired data that's going to show that? And not to mention, how many people have you heard that say, "Oh yeah, I just started this new job, but it's not the job they interviewed me for." Because, and again, that's something TA doesn't have any say over. We hired you for the job we were told you're going to do, but then you went on to that team and they started having you do X, Y, and Z out of our control. So I get it. It's an obvious metric to look at, but I don't think it's a great one. I don't love it.
Yeah, I think it's something that the CEO talks to the CHRO in context of like a sentence, like, hey,
Yeah.
how's the quality of our hires?
Yeah.
Or what's our quality of hire looking like? And the CHRO doesn't really know how to respond. So then vendors or consultants build around this phrase that's said so that it equips the CHRO to sound more knowledgeable to the CEO to earn that seat. But I
Yeah.
think it just gets bucketed and then weaponized against recruiters because it has the word hire in it. And
Mhm.
ultimately, somebody needs to be the scapegoat. And recruiting has historically been the
Oh
scapegoat. I
my gosh,
actually
we're
wear
so
that with a
easy to
badge of
blame.
honor.
Yeah, it's
Like, that's fine. Like, I will
yeah.
happily do that. Give me your gnarliest rec that's been open for 180 days. Give me your worst hiring manager who everybody hates, who has the most negative 360 reviews and is
Yeah.
probably on a PIP. And I don't care. Like, I just want to deliver outcomes. And I think that's the
Mhm.
fun part back to the accountability is recruiters get to position themselves as heroes every single day.
Yes.
And if
Yeah.
you want to do that, you just got to go out and find the folks that a hiring manager is going to be psyched to talk to.
No, I'm with you. I agree.
Let's talk about Leha. So you spent some time with the folks and friends over at LinkedIn in Chicago recently. Tell us what went
Yeah.
down.
So like I said, I've been talking to our account manager and our partners at LinkedIn since we brought Leha in. And immediately we were like, it's not quite doing what we thought it would do. Why does this do this? Why does this do? And they've been super receptive. And they even had us talk to their product team. And so they've been great. And they really liked how the enablement team, we really drove this and we almost spoon fed our recruiters. We really protected them from having to use this tool until we knew how to tell them how to make it work the best that it can work for them. And so LinkedIn had asked me to go to this, it was called Hire Connect, I think, in Chicago, beginning of April. And there's a couple hundred people there. And they had, I think, myself and three others we've been utilizing LinkedIn Hiring Assistant. And they wanted us to just do these fireside chats where we talked about our experience to other leaders that either had brought it in or considering bringing it in. I think everyone there is already a LinkedIn client, but not all of them had Hiring Assistant. So that was really cool for me to get to hear from these other people that are using it and how their teams how we're driving the adoption. And it's interesting, we all face the same challenges. It also tends to be a tool that works better for very specific roles versus go to market sales, like broad roles. It would be harder to have this assistant, which I envision the assistant as like a fresh out of school sourcer that I'm having to really train them how to go out and find these people. So the more specific, like if it's a tech job, you can say they have to have Java, they have to have X, Y, and Z, and that's pretty easy. So it was only 5 hours. It was like a 1 day, half day kind of conference, and they packed a lot into it, but it was a chance for me. And I told them, I'm going to be really honest. It's not all unicorns and rainbows. We've certainly had some challenges, and they were like, no, we want that. So just talked about my experience and then got to hear, and I don't mean my experience, I mean our experience, and then got to hear from others. And I love these conferences too, because you do connect with people and you're like, can we talk again after this? Let's set up a call because I want to just do some knowledge sharing and hear how are you dealing with this and what tips and pointers can you give us, and then reciprocate that back. That's been valuable as well.
Oh, 100%. And I appreciate you sharing back some of the stuff you saw. Yeah, I'm a big fan of any tool that is going to allow recruiters to meet candidates where they are. And
Yeah.
LinkedIn is having a moment. There are more and more folks joining the platform. There are more and
Mhm.
more creators. This is amazing. LinkedIn is the house recruiters built. I remember when we got the news feed. There are
Yeah.
people who have been on LinkedIn since before they had a news feed.
I was. Yeah. I'm 100 years old, but yeah, I definitely was. So yeah, it's changed massively. The one thing I'll say, and I've got to say it real quick before I forget, Brandon, so forgive me, but like for anyone that might be listening that's considering hiring assistant, the reason that I see so much promise in it is because it does do something that recruiters can't do, and it looks at thousands of people and comes back to us with we set the number, give me the top 3. I don't have a lot of time to source on this. I only want to see the top 3, or give me the top 15 based on these requirements that we have, that we have said must have this, can't, this is a nice to have, but this is a must have. And so it'll go out and look at 10,000 profiles that fit it and then narrow those profiles down and show me the top 15. Our recruiters, if they do those searches themselves, they might get through 100, 200, but they're not going to be able to look at thousands. And so we have had a couple hires from it already, one of which the recruiter said, I would probably never have looked at this profile, but he set up his project. He got 15. He said, hey, hiring manager, let me show you this new tool we have. Let's go through some of these people that it's found for us. And I want to see what your thoughts are. And the manager was like, this one looks great. And the recruiter was like, okay, that's never the kind of profile we've looked at. Or like, it's a little bit different, like not just the normal kind of background. And so I do see great promise for it from that perspective, especially if you bring in your hiring managers along for the ride. Because that's what we want, right? We want to see us hiring people that are coming from diverse backgrounds, diverse ways of thinking. And it's hard to do that when recruiters have to rely on LinkedIn profiles and resumes. There's not enough time in the day. So that's the benefit. This machine goes out there and looks at thousands and comes back with a small number.
Yeah, and I'm all for automation using AI to get
Yeah.
better shortlists
Yep.
because what matters is conversion rates. Nothing matters more than lower yield ratios. So if you can get a better shortlist on your desk, why wouldn't you want to use that? When you think about costs across the stack, costs to the business, every CEO will say hiring is one of their most important priorities. So
I
put your
know.
money where your mouth is.
That's what I'm saying. Yes. Put your money, give us more. Don't take budget away, give us more budget. But yeah, but I think we're all facing that. But no, I agree with you completely. And I think it's an exciting time. It's just, like I said, it's a lot of time to try to figure out what is going to be best for your team. And also what can you maybe build internally, or can you just make your process better, remove some steps, better utilize some of the tools you have. So there's a lot to play with.
And I'm a metrics guy, and I'm going to put my money where my mouth is and talk a little bit about the conversion rates. The data is real.
Yeah.
LinkedIn hiring assistant to date since they launched has yielded 62% fewer profile views per in-mail accept and 69% improvement in in-mail acceptance rates.
Yeah. And we've definitely seen our acceptance. We had our recruiters really they're doing a great job, like I said, and they are being challenged to recruit globally. But we've always had LinkedIn, I think, had always said, like, you want to strive for 32% acceptance rate. And so we had that, which was great. Like across the board, when we were just using LinkedIn Recruiter, our recruiters were doing a pretty great job of messaging. Now, though, with Leha, we are seeing that go up. At one point, when we looked at it, it said we were at like a 60% acceptance rate for the Leha candidates that we were reaching out to. Now I'd say we're sitting around 40, because it's going to change every month based on what we're doing, the utilization that month, what positions but so yes, we've absolutely seen an increase in our acceptance rates.
Yeah, and when you think about what that delivers from an enablement perspective is recruiters getting better at the craft of human connection.
Yeah.
How
Yeah.
can you write and connect with a stranger on the internet in a way that delivers connection, a value proposition for the role you're doing the outreach for, and get to a faster conversation? So I'm all for enablement. I love the work you're doing. I love this idea of empowering recruiters to do what they do best, which is connect with people. I want to get us out of here on time. How can
Yeah.
people stay up to date on where you are, what you're up to, and all of that fun stuff?
I'm all over LinkedIn. And by all over LinkedIn, I mean I have a LinkedIn profile, but I check it a lot. So I'm always really excited to talk enablement or ops or just recruiting and shop. with anyone that wants to. Like truly, I love learning from others and sharing. So if you want to chat, reach out to me. I have been at some conferences and I tend to post about those, or if I speak somewhere, I'll post about that. But yeah, I'd say LinkedIn is the place to be.
LinkedIn is the place to be. You heard it here first, folks.
That's right. That's where all the cool cats are hanging out, is LinkedIn. The bros, you might say, Brandon. You would say bros.
I'm definitely a LinkedIn bro, and I wouldn't be here doing what I'm doing today, having this conversation with you, if it were not for LinkedIn. So my advice to folks, quit talking shit and get back to work.
Get to it, right? Get to it. I'm with you.
Molly, thank you for the kindness, your friendship. I always enjoy your perspective. I would love to see more content from you.
I know,
Nudge.
I need to do that, but when? I have good ideas, but they're fleeting. So if I don't get them down on paper, they're just gone. Okay, challenge accepted.
Same. And I've got a ton of fleeting thoughts, many more notes here on the side for us to continue the conversation next time. So I will see you very soon, hopefully.
Yes, sir. Thank you. Thank you for having me. I enjoyed it. We'll talk soon.